Yeah, I wanted to talk about the emotional order. Last time I talked about the physical order, and this is really the heart. I mean, this is a really, really important thing about these six elements connecting to astrology is those four orders. Because you'll have the six elements in there, you'll have the order of the 12 meridians in there too. And it all forms that spherical pattern. So understanding each of those four orders is really important to kind of understand the thing. So remember that this spherical, these four orders, the spherical pattern vibrates in four bodies.
Yes.
So that corresponds to the four transitional states of the buckyball molecule. So this spherical pattern has four transitional states, and each one of those states produces a different order expressing its pattern. So that's why you get these four bodies, the eternal state, which is like the zodiac around the sphere. And then that projects three states for our personalities: a mental body, an emotional body, and a physical body. So these four bodies are like four transitional states for that structure. So even mathematically, it makes sense to have four transitional states. So we've talked about combining acupuncture and astrology, but we're also combining in scientific knowledge that they know about molecules. So this spherical pattern has a lot of support, a lot of evidence supporting it, saying, it kind of corresponds to science and astrology and acupuncture, and it's really good. So one of these orders is the emotional body. And we see that here, where it starts with gallbladder meridian, then to the heart meridian, stomach, lung, bladder, pericardium, liver, small intestine, spleen, large intestine, kidney, sanjiao. You follow those 12 archetypes in order, and they will describe the development of our emotions. Last week, we talked about the physical body that started with stomach, fixed earth, the physical body, earth. And then it began to breathe through the bladder meridian. And then the spirit light came in with the gallbladder. And then with spleen, that spirit light assimilated into the body. So that talks about how the physical body receives the soul, receives the personality into it and connects, and then begins to express. That's how we begin to express through a physical body. Now, the emotional body is when we go to sleep, we begin to dream. And we can actually leave our physical body and go into that dream state and move around. We actually don't have an emotional body. When you look at it, it's like an egg shape, or sometimes like a sack of potatoes. But if you concentrate on it, if you concentrate on your physical body and you feel it, you can actually reform your emotional body to look like your physical body. But that takes creating it through an awareness of your body, and then you can make that emotional substance body, you can give it the form of your physical body. Normally, when we're in that dream state and we see another person, we see them as we know them. So we see a body. But if we really see them as they are, we're not going to see a body. But we can actually create a body through our dream imagination. This is kind of when you're up at that level of the dream body, that's what's happening. So there's a world out there that exists. We can leave our physical body and go into a separate world. We can fly. Do you fly in your dreams?
I used to. I lived in a military base when I was a child, and I spent a lot of years going there every night, basically when I sleep. Uh, and then I started to kind of flying and see everything from the sky, looking behind and seeing the place where I spent my childhood. Yeah, but nowadays it's harder to happen.
And that's an emotional experience. So what we experience in our dreams is an emotional experience. Here on the physical earth, we have to eat, we have to take care of our bodies. Things don't change. Well, things can change very quickly. And that means is that you look at a flower. A flower will last a few days and then wilt. But when you go to the dream world, you can have a flower that will sit there for 60 years. You can put a flower on a table and it will stay there and not wilt for 60 years. You can come back and it's still there. You can go to the other side after death. When you go to when you go to the emotional world after death, you can find someone and you can say, do you know that you died? And they can say, I didn't die. Here I am. I'm living. I'm not dead. You don't remember being in the hospital and then all of a sudden you were not in the hospital? No, no, I recovered from that. Do you eat? Do you go to the bathroom now? Well, sometimes I'm hungry and I sit down and then I'm not hungry, so I just get up and leave. So then they don't realize that they're not eating. They don't need to eat, but they think they're eating, but they don't actually eat. When you're on the other side, life seems normal as if you're in the physical world. But you don't eat, you don't sleep. If somebody kills you, you don't die. There was a story of one man who, in the physical world, his heart was broken by his love. So he went up to the top of a building and jumped down and killed himself. And then years and years later, they went to go visit him in the dream world, and he would jump off and die. And he'd get back up, walk up the building, get to the top of the building, jump off and die. And he kept doing that over and over and over again in the afterlife, in the dream world. And he just kept thinking about how that woman broke his heart, and he just kept killing himself over and over and over again in the other world. So he can't die, but emotionally he's re-experiencing that event over and over again. So it's not like there's a body that dies, but he jumps off and hits and then experiences death, but he's already in the world of death on the other side. So he kind of wakes up, feels the pain of that woman breaking his heart, goes back up to the top of the building and experiences it all over again, over and over again. This is the nature of the emotional body. It's a reality, it really exists. But we have to understand the emotions, the how we can actually develop our emotions to the point where we're able to live and experience all the challenges of the world and survive. There's a
Yes.
lot of
And I
emotionally.
know
Go ahead.
we have these bodies. The physical is the one that dies when we die. The emotional is this one you were talking about that no, of course, does not die, and the person sometimes don't understand that he or she is dead. And also we have another one that goes back to the spirit, right? The one stays in the earth or in this another place, whatever place it will be, but there is another body that goes directly back to the spirit, right?
Yes, we have, we basically have four bodies, and we're able to live in those four bodies with our personality. So this physical body, we actually inhabit the physical body. We go into it. And it's pretty much the same thing with the emotional and mental body. They're forms that we can live through. But we have the capacity, everything starts from that spherical pattern at the center. And that gives us the capacity, the ability to experience emotions. So then we can live through an emotional form. And then we have the capacity to live through a physical form because that's one of the transitional states of the spherical pattern. And the bodies, all of these bodies are connected through the spherical matrix that exists at the center of our heart. All of the bodies are connected through there. So if you want to go to the emotional world, the astral world, a lot of people call it the astral world. If you want to go to the emotional world, you can go through the heart. And you by concentrating on the heart, it'll take you there. There are other centers of the body, energy centers that you can use. Like it's good to go out through the forehead, concentrate on the point between your eyes, and then extend that point out, and then it'll take you out when you're ready. And then you will be able to go out into your emotional body with a sense of reason, with a sense of understanding, clarity of thought. However, if you go out through the solar plexus here, if you a lot of people concentrate on the solar plexus, which is the subconscious,
Mm-hmm.
and they try to project out from that center. If they have a lot of emotional troubles, they're going to have really a bad experience. So if you've cleaned up your subconscious, then you can go out through the solar plexus. But if you still have a lot of issues, problems, like if you have revenges or fear or worries or angers, and you travel out through your solar plexus, you're going to experience those things in the emotional world. So so it's better to go out through the mental, where the mental body is located here. It's better to go out there and get some control over the emotional body. These are just a few little things to help us understand the emotional body so that we're going to understand the order that we're going to talk about now. So that, first of all, we have to understand that the emotional body is like another state of mind. It's another state, another dimension that we can live in. And it's emotional, and it has a body, and we can express through that body form in our dreams. Okay, so let's go ahead and start going through this body. So, if you look at just the meridian order, gallbladder, heart, stomach, lung, bladder, pericardium, and so on, those are the archetypes. When I say gallbladder, really thinking like the zodiac sign Leo, or the planet, the sun. The sun is that reservoir of life energy shining. And we would start there. But if you look over here in the element column, do you see how it goes yin yang, yin yang, yin yang, yin yang, yin yang, yin yang?
Yes.
So it's definitely going around the sixth element model. Wood, fire, earth, metal, water, seed. And so everything matches up just perfectly. So when you go through this emotional order, you go around the six element cycle twice. So by the elements, you're going yin, yang, a yin element, then a yang element, a yin element, then a yang element. So there's order. Then you're going, it's the yang of wood, and it's the yin of fire. So then it reverses where even though wood is a yin element, you're using its yang meridian. See that yin yang here in the second column? Gallbladder is the yang,
Yes.
the yang meridian of the yin element wood. So then as you look through the yin yang, it's yang yin, yang yin, yang yin, yin yang, yin yang, yin yang. So it has this definite mirrored pattern that gives it perfect order, perfect mirroring, so that the outside and the inside, the left and the right, top and bottom, everything mirrors perfectly. And that was the original pattern that where the four orders were discovered, by mirroring the planets across a horizon. And that mirroring ended up being seen in all of the orders. So this is like a big confirmation of how this works. Okay, let's now go through the order. Gallbladder, the sun, life energy, that feeling of just, you can be anything, that feeling of greatness, that feeling of just shining, of being. That's the root of the emotional body. So if you want, let's start for a moment. If you want to meditate on the physical body, the first thing you do is you just feel the substance of the physical body. That's the first meridian of the physical order, stomach, fixed earth. If you want to start there, you just feel the substance of your body. Now with the emotional body, what you want to feel is that power, that emotional power that you have that just radiates out to live. The sun, the planet, the sun, fixed fire, all that reservoir of energy. You concentrate on the color magenta, fuchsia, pink, that color. You concentrate on that color and you center it in the heart, because the emotional body is wanting to come from the heart. And as that flows and you feel that love, you feel that life, you're just being and expressing. That's the first step in the emotional body. Everything is built around that. And so that becomes the form through which we're going to live in the emotional body. We take on that emotional power of the light. Then, once you feel that total potential, you go to the heart meridian, to where from the sun you have these flames that shoot out. What you're doing here is you have all this potential, but then it needs to differentiate itself. You look at the sun and it just shines. It doesn't really have any form. It's just pure potential. But it needs to differentiate that potential. So then you bring in the heart. With all this potential of what you can be, that you begin to differentiate man, woman. That's one differentiation. I'm going to be born in Brazil. And so you differentiate. Now you're born in Brazil. I'm going to go into this family. And then you're born into a certain family. And so you take that. You could be born anywhere. You could be born anywhere on the earth. But you have to choose one place to be born. And that's that heart differentiating all of your great potential into what you're going to do. So it's like, as you go through this order, there's like this little question you can ask. The gallbladder, you say, okay, what are we going to do? So you have all this potential. What are we going to do? And then the heart steps in and says, I know what to do. Right? And then comes the stomach. And the stomach says, whoa, let's hear what everybody else has to say. Right? The stomach says, you have all this potential. Now let's bring this down into something real. So it's, in a sense, emotionally, let's try to keep this emotional. The gallbladder is just that feeling of just power living. And heart is this emotion of desire. I want this. I want that. This, not that, this. Choosing, pointing, acting. It's that I want to be. I want to be something. I just don't want to just shine. I want to be something. It's differentiating the greatness into something and making that greatness be great through something differentiating. And this is how life manifests. As we come from God, we're total potential. But at some point, we need to differentiate and become something specific. And heart starts that process. And then at stomach, we bring in that desire and we hold it into a substance so that the desire becomes a powerful thing. And then we want to give it a form. So the heart says, I want to be give me a profession. Give me any profession.
Teacher.
I want to be a teacher. The heart says, I know I can be anything. I just want to be a teacher. The stomach takes that desire and begins to manifest it, form it, hold it, sustain it, and then give it form through the lung. The lung is giving form to a substance. So then the lung comes along and says, okay, you want to be a teacher? Talk like this, say this, learn this, and then you'll be able to be a teacher. You have to communicate like this. This is what you have to do to be a teacher. That's Libra, lung, Venus. If you want to be a teacher, you have to have the correct form, the emotional form. So then our emotions have to live through that form and understand our form. So even the lung is an emotional expression. Even Venus and Libra is an emotional expression. It's easy to see heart as emotional expression. I desire something. But then the lung is like, who are you? You have to live the emotion of who you are. And so the lung is more sophisticated than the heart. So what we have in these first 4 steps is potential gallbladder being differentiated by the heart. Then we take that substance of how we can actually express that desire, and then we differentiate that through the lung. So it's a 2-step process of differentiation. Heart differentiates the desire, lung differentiates the form that desire will express through. So a lot of people have a problem not loving themselves. Have you seen that in like self-help books?
Yes.
Love yourself. Because they come into the world with a desire from the heart. And then as they develop who they are through their lung, they're like, I don't like who I am. I'm not able to fulfill my heart's desire because I'm not the right person. Either I have the wrong sex, or I don't talk well, or I don't learn well, or I don't do something well. And so their lung is blocked. Their lung meridian is blocked because that's part of the order. They need to love themselves in the lung emotionally. They need to just understand, hey, that's who you are. Express your desire through who you are. Go for it. And then when they love that, when they say, okay, this is who I am, I will live my desire, then they've unblocked the lung and they can move on. So once they know their heart's desire and they understand who they are, it's male, female, their personality, and they say, okay, I can do this. Then you go to the bladder. The bladder is Mercury, the planet Mercury, Gemini. It's just driving around. It's exploring. It's looking around. It's saying, okay, this is who I am. Now I have to find a way to fulfill my desire. I started with total potential. Then my heart came along and said, I have a heart's desire now. Okay, let's give it form, stomach, lung. Now let's go find that desire. Okay, so the bladder begins to search. Where can I fulfill my desire? Just imagine that you're a chair. You're a chair, and you take the gallbladder life energy, you differentiate it down to a desire. I want to be a chair. Okay, you want to be a chair. Fine. Here's some substance. So then you start feeling all your substance, and then that substance gets molded and formed into a chair. Okay, now you're a chair. We just went gallbladder, heart, stomach, lung. Okay, now you're a chair. How do you feel? I feel pretty good, but what do I do now? Where do I go? Well, A chair. Let's put you on top of the house. How do you feel now? I don't know. This doesn't feel right, right? Okay, a chair. Let's put you up in a tree. How do you feel now? No, this isn't quite right. Let's keep going. Eventually, you put the chair underneath a table, and the chair says, "Wait, this feels right. This feels like where I'm supposed to be." And then, so that's the bladder, pericardium working together. The bladder is searching, and then the pericardium is sensing where that desire needs to be in order to be fulfilled. The pericardium is the moon, the sign Cancer, the fourth house, family, home, belonging. Where do you belong? So this is another step in that differentiation. Bladder is where do I go? Let me explore where I need to be. And then pericardium comes along and differentiates that and says, this is where you need to be. If I'm a certain tree, like a palm tree that lives in the tropical regions, a palm tree, at bladder, that palm tree is trying different climates. It may go down to the southern tip of Argentina and think, oh, it's just too cold here. I can't survive. And then it goes to certain parts of Brazil and says, now this feels right. This is comfortable. And now the palm tree can grow. And that's what pericardium does. The pericardium wants to tell you what feels right for you. Where is your place in the world? So when people can't find their place in the world, pericardium meridian. Because you know that emotionally, the pericardium is going to help them find their place in the world. Like, who are their friends? What kind of job? What kind of climate suits them best? What kind of lifestyle? They're going to go towards a place that feels comfortable for them. So here we have it. The first 6 steps of the emotional body: developing a desire, developing the form that you can express that desire through, and then 3, where can you fulfill that desire? So once you've found the place to fulfill your desire, what happens next is you start fulfilling your desire. And that's in the second half of the order. We know a lot of people who are blocked in the first 6 steps. They don't even know what their desire is. Okay, that's a heart meridian problem. Or they have a hard time grounding that desire in their life. Okay, that's a stomach problem. Well, they have a hard time understanding who they are as a person. Well, that's a lung problem. They're having a hard time exploring the world. Well, that's a bladder problem. They're having a hard time finding where they belong in the world. That's a pericardium problem. See how that steps? So as you go through the emotional order,
Yes.
you can see which meridians are being affected. Okay.
And I was thinking about a few people that has these problems that you just mentioned, and yes, they have problems in these meridians while thinking about physical their diseases. So it's exactly these meridians, and they have these emotional problems as well. So yeah, perfect.
So if you know somebody has, say, a lung problem in the lung meridian, maybe they have skin issues or relationship problems, or they're lonely, they don't know how to form friendships, things like that. You can treat the meridian, the lung meridian, but you can also help them emotionally with some psychological counseling. And that's when you start combining the emotional nature of the meridians into your acupuncture treatments. And this is the beauty, because as you see, we're combining acupuncture with astrology here. We're combining them. So when we say the lung meridian, we also see Venus, the sign of Libra. We may even see the seventh house. And those types of issues, we can now talk about them and work through them through counseling while we treat the meridian itself. And so instead of just treating the meridian, let's do some counseling too. Now we start the second half. You're comfortable with yourself. You know where you are. You're growing. You begin to grow because now you found where you are, and there's this synergy of life that you are now where you need to be. And now you're going to feel that synergy again of like, everything is perfect. I know who I am. I'm in the right place. I can now go for my dreams. And you go to the liver, the planet Jupiter, which starts the second half, but it's also a wood meridian like gallbladder. The sun projects light, but there's only one other planet that actually projects light. That's Jupiter. So the Jupiter is also like a mini sun in the solar system. So the moment you find where you need to be, you begin to grow. Jupiter, expand, find your horizons, express yourself, your philosophy, express who you are in the world. You need room to grow because now you have your place. Your roots are extending. Your branches are extending. You are traveling. You're telling everybody who you are. You like to talk about your philosophies, things like that. That's liver. So if we find somebody who is unable to express like a philosophy of their life, they have a problem with the liver. If we have a person who's unable to grow, they seem like maybe it's like a woman in a house, and she has her family, she's taking care of her family, and she's doing everything for them. But then there's this desire in her that she wants to do something with her life, right? She wants to grow as a person. She wants to express her reality. And if she's not able to because she's just taking care of everybody else, she's going to have a liver problem. Very common. Liver problem leads to depression, leads to sadnesses, things like that. So when we talk about depression, we see self-help books for depression and feeling that way. It's the liver. Women in that case, the women need to develop their own abilities, their own interests, their own philosophies, and then to express that. And if they don't, they're going to have a liver problem. Okay. Because the woman may feel fine. The woman will say, I feel fine. I love my family. I love taking care of them. We have so much fun, but I'm not being who I am. You go right to the liver because she's comfortable where she is as the mother of a family, but that's only the first half of her emotional body. She's not fulfilling her own dreams. And that's when you have to get into the second half. So then you go to liver and you express out, you begin to grow, you begin to say, okay, now I know who I am and I know where I am, and you start to grow. And then we're going to differentiate that with the small intestine by Saturn. Saturn's going to differentiate all that growth from liver and say, okay, you have all this great potential now. You know where you are. You know who you are. You know what your desire is. What are you going to do? That's what Saturn asks. Saturn says, what are you going to do? What are you going to do now? Where are you going to work? Okay, you want to be a teacher. What do you want to teach? Where do you want to teach? Do you want to teach young children? Do you want to teach older children? Do you want to teach adults? Maybe you want to teach animals. You want to be a dog trainer. Who do you want to teach? Focus. Focus, focus, focus on what you want to do. Way back at the heart was just, I want to be a teacher. Well, it's not that simple. You got to go through these steps of saying, okay, let's develop your form so that you have a nice smile, you can communicate, right? And then now you're going to have to find yourself, find where you're going to learn to be a teacher. And then once you're a teacher, once you know that you're a teacher, what are you going to teach? Let's develop this desire into something specific. And that's what Saturn comes along to do through the small intestine. So you might find somebody who is comfortable, who they are, where they are, and they're beginning to express their philosophies, but they're not doing anything with them yet. They're not applying them. I'm a teacher. I'd love to be a teacher. I know all the theories about being a teacher. And I can teach anything. It's like you have to do this, you have to do a lesson plan, you have to do this, and you have to teach this, and all these techniques for teaching. Okay, that's liver. Because the person is like expressing their ability to teach. But then someone says, then why aren't you teaching? Huh? Oh, you mean I have to teach now? So if they're not applying the knowledge, that's a small intestine problem. So it's an emotional thing. As you feel this, as we go through this story of the emotional body, you're going to feel it's an emotional story. Finding out who you are, finding where you need to be, and that feeling of just expressing your philosophy it's an emotional feeling. It's an emotional power. But then you get this emotion of focus. What are you going to do? You have to differentiate and focus to execute your energy. That's Saturn. So once you're able to focus, you can move on. If you can't focus, well, then we need to treat the small intestine. Because emotionally, you're not able to focus your abilities here. So let's treat your small intestine. So do you see how the acupuncture treatments can tell us exactly what meridian?
It's a kind of journey. Né? So you need to see in which phase of the journey you are, and you need to treat the meridian to be able to go further and evolve in your journey.
That's exactly it. This is,
Fantastic.
this is like, this is not new information, but what is new is now we can place each meridian with each step of that emotional development. Now we can see which particular specific meridian is associated with each step of that emotional development. That's the big thing that we can do now. Okay, so small intestine, focus. Let's get to work. Then comes spleen. And spleen is Virgo, the planet Chiron. It begins to learn all of the little details of the job. Okay, what do I need to do? Well, you have your blackboard, you have your books, you have your desk, you have your schedule, you have your lesson plan. Okay, let me get everything organized. Virgo, right? Mutable earth, getting everything,
Yeah.
all the little details organized. That's spleen, developing. Now you're finally getting down to your job and you're doing your job, you're learning it. And so people who are able to do their jobs, but they seem unorganized, people who are unorganized have a spleen problem. So they're good, they know their desire, they know what they want to do, they have the right form for it. You know, they have the right clothes, they have the right hairstyle, they have the right words. Everything seems perfect and they found the right place where they can work and they're beginning to work, but then they just seem disorganized. And through that disorganization, they're not really able to do their best job. Spleen problem. Okay, let's say they're able to organize and they have everything set, organized. They're able to do their work. They have a good time management. They know how to manage their time. They know how to manage their resources. They know how to keep everything in order. Spleen is healthy. Now they go on to the large intestine. And the large intestine is like, okay, I got this. I understand what it is to be a teacher. And now they're teaching. They're in the authority of the form. They've now given all of their desire the form to teach. Just like lung was the other meridian for the element metal before, giving us the form of our desire. Now large intestine gives us the form of actually completing and fulfilling our desire. We begin to know the principles. We begin to know the laws. We begin to know how this thing works so we can actually establish our work and what we need to do to actually fulfill our desire. So the large intestine is like, now we have the form on this. So it's emotionally, it's an emotional sense of authority. That now you have the authority to do your work. You've learned all the details and you're mastering your craft. You're mastering your job. You're mastering your knowledge and your abilities. You go from liver and Jupiter, you're just talking. Okay, that's wonderful. Just talk. The large intestine looks at you and says, you still have a lot of growing up to do. Right? So then liver says, okay, I'm going to find a job. So then liver finds a job and says, okay, now I'm Saturn. I have a job. And the large intestine looks at you and says, okay, you have a job. Let's see how you do. And then Saturn says, okay, at the small intestine, okay, I'm going to get down to this job and I'm going to do the job and I'm going to learn all the little details and I'm going to figure out how this all works. And large intestine is looking at you thinking, okay, that's wonderful. You're doing good. You found a job. You're learning how to do the job. And then through the spleen, you're mastering the job. And all of a sudden you go, hey, I think I've mastered the job. And large intestine looks at you and says, now you're one of me. Now you're like me. You and I are now masters of our job. Before you were just talking, now you've applied your talk, you've executed it, you've learned it, you've mastered your craft. Now you're with me. We're mature enough to be able to know how to fulfill a desire, the work it takes, the hard work it takes, the concentration, the focus, the attention to detail, and now accomplishing it. So now we've gone up to large intestine, to that emotion of authority saying, looking back and thinking everybody else is immature. You know how an Aquarian can be sometimes, right? Everybody else is immature.
Yes. Yes.
But it has reason.
Are you Aquarium?
No, I'm actually a Scorpio.
No.
So
Okay.
the Aquarian looks back and says, everybody else needs to mature here. Because emotionally, they've learned how to master their knowledge. And they see everybody else, they still haven't mastered their knowledge yet. So, you know, it's hard to really find somebody who does a great job in everything they do, but all of a sudden it's like they don't realize they're a master at their job. They don't realize how good they do their job. And they're just kind of stuck in that spleen Virgo state. But they need to progress to that large intestine Aquarius state and realize they made it. They're a master of their job now. They need to realize that. And you can help them by, treating the large intestine meridian. That helps them mature. It helps them get that point of view. It's like, I am maturing. I am understanding this stuff now. And I know how this works. I know the laws, and I can actually establish laws. It's like I could even write a book about how to do this job now. Because I've worked it so long, I can actually write a book about this now. So that's when the large intestine is healthy. If you have a person that says, I've been doing this job for 20 years, and someone says, why don't you write a book? Oh, I don't know. I couldn't write a book about this. No, right? I don't know that much. You treat their large intestine and say, you can write a book. You treat their large intestine, keep telling them you can write a book. And pretty soon they go, you know something? I could write a book. I could write a book about what I know about my work. So that heart's desire has now reached a point of a high development where they can actually write a book about what they know. So the large intestine is a mature state of the emotions to be able to write a book. Now, a lot of people back in the liver in Jupiter will just write books because that's part of expressing their philosophy. But when you get to large intestine and someone's saying, these are the problems. These are the solutions to those problems. From my experience, this is what you have to do. So when you read a book of someone who actually is describing that process of solving problems, then they've reached large intestine. But if the person's just writing a book about their philosophy, that's the liver, the Jupiter. They're back a couple of earlier stages where they're beginning to just express their philosophy. But then they need to focus on what to do with that. Okay. Large intestine, you're mastering your craft. What's left? What else, emotionally, what else is there to do? Isn't that enough? Isn't that enough just to be mature and to say, I can write a book on this now. I understand this. I can just write a book. No, there's still a couple of more lessons to learn emotionally. It's those last two, the kidney sanjiao. The kidney emotionally is a delicate emotional state where you're beginning to sense things beyond yourself. You've spent so much time developing your own desires and what you want to do with your life that all of a sudden there comes a point in time where you've mastered it. And then you really begin to understand how what you've done affects other people. And there's this emotional connection of empathy, of feeling what other people are feeling from your work. And it opens up this whole set of emotions that you might feel guilty. I spent my whole life learning how to develop a bomb, a big bomb. And I finally learned all the mathematics. I learned the engineering, and I was able to make a bomb perfect. And then all of a sudden, the kidney comes along and says, what's going to happen with that bomb that you just made? And the person begins to realize that bomb is going to kill a lot of people. Exactly. How do you feel now? And the person may feel very guilty, or they may feel, I just think my bomb is going to be good for my people. Okay, that's good. But to how far can you go with that kidney to really understand the impact of what you've done? Let's say there's a man who has a family, and all of a sudden he gets this desire to have his own woman on the side. He does that for his own ego feeling, right? He wants to feel good. He wants to feel like a man. So he goes through the whole steps of, finding where that woman is and finding who to do it with and kind of talking with her and saying, maybe we could work out something. And then they start getting into it. And then the liver comes along, they start saying, okay, let's do this. And then they start developing that whole secret relationship as you go through these steps. And then finally, it's like saying, I am mastering this art of having affairs outside of my relationship. And then the kidney comes along and says, what if somebody finds out? What if your kids find out? What if your wife finds out? What are you going to feel then? And what if the family does find out? And then that forces his emotions to open up and feel the distrust, to feel that pain of now people who love me or love the man, now they don't love me. Now they don't trust me. And kidney feels that pain of saying what you wanted has caused other people pain. You need to learn better. So the heart in its original desire is just like, hey, this is what I want to do because it makes me feel good. That's the original heart's desire. But then there's this lesson that's going to have to be learned eventually. Does your desire hurt other people? Does your desire limit and put down other people? Will your desire actually break your life? And so that's when the kidney comes in. And let's say a person has lived a perfect life. They have served the community. Maybe they were a nurse and people would come to the hospital and they would take care of them and then send them on healthy. And that person has absolutely nothing to regret, nothing to say, I didn't hurt anybody. I took care of people. That person goes into that kidney emotion, and they feel good. They feel like, wow, I've really come through a lot. And emotionally, I feel connected to people. And I feel like I've loved people. And that's when the kidney is healthy. But when someone has done something wrong to hurt other people, and all of a sudden they realize that, and that pain from the kidney, we need to treat the kidney. It's that fear, that pain. We need to treat the kidney because they finally realized what they did in their life was wrong. But if they can get through that and live a correct life, then the kidney will say, hey, you did wonderful. You feel wonderful. Now you're free. You're free because your desire was actually good for the world. You didn't hurt anybody. Okay. Now we come to the last stage, Sanjiao. So many people have had a hard time understanding what is Scorpio all about, right? What is Scorpio? It's so hard to understand Scorpios and the eighth house.
Yes, it is.
Oh, it's like, what does that mean? What are you supposed to do in the eighth house? Sanjiao, at the end of everything, has one main question. Does it matter? So in kidney, you're feeling all of this pain, or you may be feeling a lot of joy and happiness because of all the wonderful work you did. And then Scorpio says, does it matter? Does it matter whether you have pain or joy? Does it matter? And it's that state of freeing yourself from the emotional desire. There's nothing left to do. You completed your desire all the way up to large intestine, and then you felt the results of your desire, and now you're bringing together the experience into wisdom. What did you learn? What do you have now in your experience that you can share with other people? What pain did you live through that you can teach other people not to experience that pain? What joy did you find that you can now share with other people? And so at the end of the emotional body, it is wisdom. What matters? What matters? And it takes years of experience to kind of get to that point. Even though we're constantly going through all of these steps at every age of our life, we're going through all of these steps, trying to express our philosophies, trying to find out who we are, where we are, trying different jobs, seeing if we master a job, feeling the results through kidney, and then trying to get a sense of, was that right or wrong? That Sanjiao, trying to figure out, what kind of wisdom am I gaining here? So we go through this order constantly, every day in our experience, and we're slowly building wisdom. And there comes a point where we live our life to such an extent that the Sanjiao will then say, okay, what did you learn? What really matters here? And it's an emotional feeling of, if you can you feel that emotion? Sometimes it's hard to find a word to describe it. It's almost like closure. Do you understand the word closure?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
It's like closure, saying, okay, let's close this story so that we can say this story has ended so that we can move on. So it's a process of giving you closure to say You have completed everything. You've learned your lessons. You've gained your wisdom. Grab that wisdom. Now move on to your next desire. And so that Scorpio Pluto is that closure. Everything up until that point is trying to develop understanding, trying to develop abilities, trying to develop desires, trying to develop where we belong, everything, trying to develop the ability to realize we're masters. Everything up until that point is trying to develop the desire. And then finally with Scorpio, it's like, now is the time to stop your desire and understand, put closure on your desire and say, now stop. What did you learn? This is as far as you can go. Now you know if you're hurting people or helping people. Now you know if what you did was right or wrong. Now learn. What did you learn? So we can bring closure to this desire. So if someone is not able to arrive at closure, let's say they've gone through all the steps and they're suffering at kidney. They feel the pain or they feel the joy and they just keep living it. And they're not actually able to close the situation. They're not able to end it. Well, they have a problem with Sanjiao. We go back to that man who died and kept jumping off of that library. That was the building. He kept jumping off of a library.
Mm-hmm.
We see a man just repeating the pain over and over again. Kidney. He was in the pain of the kidney. He needed to learn wisdom. He needed to close the pain. He needed to end it. There was nothing more he could do, nothing he could solve, absolutely nothing. He needed to go that one extra step and just go, this hurts. What am I learning? The pain is incredible, but what is the pain teaching me? That's when the Sanjiao has to step in as the last meridian to that soul, that personality that continues to kill himself. Treat that Sanjiao and say, look, you went through a bad situation. What did you learn? What can you teach us about your experience? Treat the Sanjiao. And then all of a sudden the man says, I learned that I have to be more careful with who I love. Boom. Sanjiao is now healthy. You can now move on with your life. You can now go on to a new desire. So that Sanjiao, can you see that with that man who just keeps killing himself after death?
Yes.
He's stuck in that kidney.
Yes. And there is people experience this in life as well, with bad relationships, suffering forever. And yeah, there are plenty of people in this exact case now. We see. So in this case, when we see this problem, we should treat the next meridian, the meridian not expressing himself, and not the for example, in this case, we should treat Sanjiao and not kidney, right? Or both.
Well, if Sanjiao is blocked, right, You could pick a complement, go all the way back to the beginning and say gallbladder, needle gallbladder, which is a complement of Sanjiao. Or or another complement is stomach. So you go all the way back to the beginning and get those fixed energies to complement the fixed water of Sanjiao. Gallbladder, stomach, Leo, Taurus. Needle those. That gets your complement. And now you're going to needle a meridian where the Sanjiao flows into that meridian. It's either liver or small intestine. So you come here, liver, small intestine, so you're kind of restarting that process in the second half of this emotional order. Sanjiao will flow back into liver, small intestine. So let's say you did gallbladder and liver. Now you've balanced Sanjiao. You're picking liver because the Sanjiao will go into liver. And now you're going to come back and pick a meridian that flows into the Sanjiao. Let's say you just want kidney because there's so much pain there. You all of a sudden you feel the pain of so many other people that it's too much and you can't process it. So you have this excess in the kidney. There's too much, you're feeling too much pain of other people that you've hurt. So you have this excess emotion in kidney. So there's an excess in kidney. I know acupuncture sometimes says kidney can't go into excess, right? It can go into excess.
Yeah.
When it's full of pain or full of fear, where its emotion is just too strong of things that you felt all of a sudden. So you needle gallbladder or stomach, then you needle liver or small intestine, and then you needle kidney, and that sets it up to bring all of that energy right into Sanjiao. And then you needle Sanjiao. All of a sudden that pain begins to take on this form of wisdom. It's like, I need to own my pain. I need to just realize this is the result of my desire. And I need to gain wisdom. And be careful I don't do this again. I need to learn my lesson. So everybody says in life you have to learn lessons. That's karma.
Yes.
As you go through all these lives, we're learning lessons. And eventually we're going to learn our lessons. Well, there's a state, that last state of the emotional body, where we really have to just learn our lesson so that we can move on. You'll see a lot of people just living crazy, unorganized lives inside the emotional body. Maybe there's problems with the bladder meridian or pericardium meridian or the liver meridian. And then they die and they never really understand what happened. They never got to that Sanjiao level to understand what happened in their life. So then they have to come back, live again, until they can finally develop their emotional experience to Sanjiao to say, I really understand what happened now. Yes, I feel the pain, or yes, I feel the joy, but now I need to move on. There's more to this because I have more potential. And then after Sanjiao closes, the new cycle begins again at gallbladder. So you take that man on the other side killing himself over and over again. You treat his Sanjiao, unblock his Sanjiao, and all of a sudden he says, now I understand. I have this wisdom. And I've been able to, it's like Sanjiao is like fixed water. Scorpio. So all that experience up on the land has flowed down through the rivers of kidney, mutable water, all the way down into the ocean. And Sanjiao is the ocean receiving all of the river water. And then it's like the lowest place. Everything flows to the ocean. And then the ocean receives everything and says, this is my experience. Then we should die. That's where Sanjiao gets that relationship with death. Because when you reach Sanjiao, Scorpio, and you've completed that, what's next? Death. It's the end of the cycle. It's the end of your desire. It's the end of what you wanted to do. It's the end of your story. It's death. That's where Scorpio gets connected to death, because it's the last symbol in this emotional order. But you die, you come back, the first thing you're going to experience is gallbladder. All that potential life again. Now, if you carry pain from a past life, that's going to affect your gallbladder. But if you can accept the pain, if you can own the pain, if you can say, you know, I went through the pain, I have closure. I learned my lesson. Then when you come back clean and start the new cycle for the emotional body, your gallbladder can just start shining brightly and gives you the ability to say, now what do you want to do? You've already learned that other lesson. You don't have to keep on learning it because you learned it. Now what do you want to do? And then the heart says, you know, I don't want to do that again because that didn't turn out so well. That didn't end well. Let me think. I learned my lesson that now I need to really take care of my family, and I really need to love my wife and my family and not cause them any pain. That's what I want to do. Let's do it. And so you take that lesson from the previous cycle and you start the new cycle on a different level of wisdom. And that's how it's supposed to work.
Great.
All right.
Really great. It's journey of life. Yes, and now with this link with the meridians, and then we can identify the imbalances easily according to these emotions. Yeah, really nice.
Yep. And so we can see that this is really useful to understand.
Yes.
And you can actually make a meditation out of this, so that you're meditating on each one of these symbols, trying to understand how you are living that particular symbol in your life. You know, you start out, you know, do you feel all that energy for life? Do you still feel that gallbladder sun, fixed fire, wonderful energy that we have to live? Do you still feel that? Have you lost it? Do you still feel it? If you don't feel it, look for it, feel it. You reconnect to that base. And then, you know, what do you want? Start looking at your desires, heart, stomach, lung. You know, who are you? What's your form? Do you like the way you look? Do you feel comfortable with the way you look? That's lung. Well, if you don't like the way you look, that's a lung issue. Meditate on it until you feel comfortable with the way you look. That's who you are. And then you kind of keep meditating through these until you finally get to the point where it's like, do you understand what you're doing? Are you able to Are you able to function? Are you able to fulfill your desires? And do you understand how your desires are impacting the world? And so at each one of these steps, you can reflect upon your life as a meditation.
Yes.
So I think that's probably a
We'll
good
do
place.
that.
I think that's a good place to stop. I think we've been going like an hour and 20 minutes. So
Yes, it was great information.
yeah. No, that's the emotional body, super important as an acupuncturist to understand how this emotional body works. This right here, this lesson, so many acupuncturists would be able to improve their treatments if they learned what I just talked about. Being able to identify specific meridians for specific emotional problems or blockages. Next time,
Yes.
if we don't have other things to talk about, we'll talk about the mental body, which is a
Would be great.
completely different set of principles. Understanding the the mental body really opens up the mind. But understanding the emotional body is really important to understanding how we're living, what we're doing.
Yes.
Okay, Daniela. I think we're done.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Great information.
Thank you.
Really nice. Thank you. Have a great night.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye bye.